what's going on? Russell Wayne and the Main Event 365 Network. This is Jason Kabinda from the Detroit Lions. Here to give y'all a shout out, man. We appreciate all the support, man. Know you guys are big fans. Know that you guys are rooting for us to take the North this year, and we're going to do just that, man. Appreciate you guys so much. Just want to give y'all a shout out. You have a great day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Main Event 365 podcast. It's our reboot for the 2023 season. I hope you are all listening and enjoying the programming that we've been providing for you here at the Main Event during the offseason. I am Main Event Mike, your host, and along with the maestro, our producer, Russell Wayne, we are here to bring you episode 1 of the 2023 season for the Main Event 365 podcast. Russ, how are you today, and what do you want to do to kick off this first podcast season?
Well, first of all, thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel, and thank you for following the Detroit Lions Villain Squad. That's our brand new Facebook page. We appreciate everybody that's been part of our lives every single morning when it's NFC North Talk with Russell Wayne, and Mike is a guest on that show as well. And then obviously the NFC North Open Mic every single Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're still keeping that tradition alive. We do like to run these Packer fans and these Bear fans and these Viking fans into the mud, but that is not our purpose here today. It's been a while, and we specifically started this with the Main Event 365 podcast about the Detroit Lions, and this journey has been right along with the Brad Holmes journey. And I want to go into the Wayback Machine, because I don't know if average football or Detroit Lion fans realizes how far that this regime has come over the last 2 years. So let's go back in the Wayback Machine and let's look at some of these 2021 rosters. I mean, we'll start with the quarterbacks, where not a big, huge change, but from the backup spot, we had Jared Goff, Tim Boyle, and David Blah as our quarterbacks. I mean, how are you feeling in 2021 when you knew that was what you were rolling out as starting quarterbacks?
Well, Russ, I love starting it out like this, taking a look back at where we came from, right? 2021, we were just getting started. This team was terrible. We knew this team was terrible. We were getting ready for a draft. We were really anticipating to have a good draft because we did have the second overall pick coming, right? And we thought for sure Jacksonville was going to take Trayvon Walker. And you and I were thinking maybe a quarterback, right? Maybe we'd get a quarterback in that draft. But no, they take Aiden Hutchinson after Jared Goff won 3 games the year before, and he didn't look that great. And you and I know personally, I was crucifying Jared Goff. You, on the other hand, you saw something else, and you weren't ready to give up on him even after that first year. And kudos to you, my friend. But the Lions did not select a quarterback. They decided to run with Jared Goff, and we saw in 2022 exactly why. Because Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell already think they have their franchise quarterback at this point. They think, a lot of people look at Jared Goff as a throw-in from the Stafford trade. But Brad Holmes has come right out and said, no, that was a major piece of the trade. We want Goff. Because he worked with him in LA. He knew what he was getting. He knew he was a super likable guy, a super coachable guy. And he was there at his pro day, which is legendary at Cal. Jared Goff's pro day was legendary, which made him the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. And those traits and those talents are now coming to fruition after a season which saw him go 29 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and almost set the NFL record for the most pass attempts without an interception. That streak, by the way, is still going into the 2023 season. So you've got a guy who's tall, right? He's got a strong arm, a grasp of the offense. He's super talented. He processes information well. What's the problem? Why do you need a new quarterback? And as we said last year, we don't. Jared Goff is a franchise quarterback. He finished in the top 5 in quarterback rating last year, and the Lions are set at starting QB. The only hole that was really bothering this team was backup quarterback. Like you said, in 2021, we had Blau, Tim Boyle. Neither of those guys were able to make the team. In fact, they slid into home plate as the regular season was starting, and they had Nate Sudfeld picked up from San Francisco. I believe he was the backup out there. And they brought in Nate Sudfeld. Fortunately, Nate didn't have to take any meaningful snaps last year because we saw in this last preseason that he's probably not going to be a real reliable option. But last year, Goff, Blau, and Boyle, those are the quarterbacks we carried. We're very fortunate to make it out of 2022 with a winning record with those quarterbacks. But this year, Teddy Two Gloves comes in. Teddy Bridgewater signed as a free agent to be the backup quarterback. And then lo and behold, they draft Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, a guy who was from one injury away from winning the Heisman Trophy. There's no pressure for him to start. He can now sit, learn from Jared Goff, learn from Teddy Bridgewater, and maybe be the future of this franchise. So they were looking for quarterback depth in that draft. I had said at the beginning of the draft, I'd eat my hat if they came out without a quarterback because the need was so big. But it worked out so much better than we could have even predicted, getting Teddy Bridgewater as a backup and Hendon Hooker as a future QB. Then you throw in guys like Sudfeld and Adrian Martinez from Kansas State, who's a dual threat quarterback. We now have depth at this position. Now it's going to be a question, who do you let go? So from 2021 to the 2023 season, the quarterback position is in much better shape.
Look at what Brad Holmes has done with this. It's like, not only do you believe in a quarterback that nobody believed in, and then he ends up proving everybody wrong. And I think the reason that people don't like Jared Goff is he's not mobile. I really believe that that's a sexy thing here in the NFL. People love a guy that can escape the pocket and do stuff outside of the pocket, but really that's not a huge percentage of the game. Really, you need to have a guy that makes good decisions on a regular basis, that can stand tall in the pocket. And Jared Goff is that guy, even though it may not, he may not be escaping the pocket like, Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or anybody like that, but he's incredibly accurate and he serves that purpose. And bringing in Teddy Two Gloves, I mean, what can you say? He was, 7-2 in relief of Drew Brees. He's been good as a backup before. He's a proven starter. The team loves him from a point of practice, right? Where you got Jared Goff running with the ones, completely no distractions, no anything. And then you got Teddy. I love where they're at with quarterback. And to Brad Holmes' credit, not only does he have a good starting quarterback, but you have quality depth, and you're actually going to have competition at that position going forward. So night and day.
Yeah, and we saw last year with the San Francisco 49ers how important depth at the quarterback position is. And I think one thing that Teddy Bridgewater brings is confidence to the team. The team has confidence that if Jared Goff goes down, they've got a reliable guy that can step in and run the offense. And if you look around the league and you ask people around the league, they all say the same things. That Teddy's a great teammate, right? And you could tell in his interview with the Lions, where he was smiling the whole time, and he was so affable. He was so approachable.
It's my quarterback.
And I think that this is kind of a thing, an intangible thing that Teddy brings as a calming presence now to the offense. There's no worry. There's no holes anymore. A guy, these teams approach it with a certain attitude. If your starting quarterback goes down, your backup and has to play 4 games. Can he win 2 of those 4 games? Teddy Bridgewater's already proved that he can. And with Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn in New Orleans, he went 5-0 as a starter when Drew Brees went down. So when all of that stuff trickles down, when the coach has confidence in you, that trickles down to the team. And when he's such a good guy and an affable guy, the rest of the team, their confidence builds. Hey, if Jared Goff goes down, we're going to be fine. It's next man up.
Let's do the running back. So in 2021, and really this one hasn't really changed all that much except for our starters. So that was DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Well, that was the same thing that it was last year. And then we had Jamar Jefferson and Jason Kabinda.
Well, let's jump in the Wayback Machine and look at 2021. Those names that you mentioned. Jamar Jefferson was a 7th round rookie at that time, right? He didn't
Right.
get on the field much. He didn't play much. Jason Cabinda's a special teamer, a fullback, an H-back, not really a guy that's toting the rock, in every game. So you had Jamal Williams come in here on a short contract, on a 2-year contract, and he became a vocal leader and a team leader on the team in that 2021 season, and he established himself as such. Comes around to the offseason in 2021. Jamal Williams wants a new contract. It's time for him to get a new contract. The Lions make an offer to him. He says it's not enough. He even called it insulting. So he and his agent went and shopped his services around. They could not beat the deal. And by the time he got back to Detroit, we had already signed free agent David Montgomery from the Chicago Bears, the best running back at breaking tackles in the league, a great blocking back, a guy that's a 3-down back, an upgrade from Jamal Williams.
Upgrade.
Make no mistake, that is an upgrade from Jamal Williams. And they just said, Jamal, sorry, you waited too long. Your agent dropped the ball for you. And in the depleted running back market, it's been so bad and it's been so talked about. I don't even think we need to go into it. Let's just suffice it to say that the running back position has been devalued and the salaries for running back is not what they used to be. So it ended up that Jamal Williams signs in New Orleans for actually $2 million less than what Brad Holmes had offered him. He pulled the offer, signs David Montgomery to that same $6 million. A masterful stroke by Brad Holmes to get an upgrade for the same price. So DeAndre Swift got hurt, of course. Got hurt the next year, of course. Constantly limited touches with DeAndre Swift. So we only won 3 games, but we knew we had a pretty good running back room because Jamal Williams was a tough runner between the tackles. They didn't really need to address it. And then we let DeAndre Swift go on draft day, and everybody went, "What are you doing?" Well, we did that just before we traded up to number 12 traded out of number 6 to number 12 to get Jahmyr Gibbs. A lot of people ranked him as the second best running back in the draft behind only Bijan Robinson. And it should be stated as well that the Lions had a chance to draft Bijan Robinson at 6. He didn't go until 8. If we wanted Bijan Robinson, we could have taken him at 6. So it wasn't like we were just looking for a running back. No. We wanted this particular player. And Brad Holmes has said it many times that this was a player that they were targeting. And they felt very fortunate to get him at number 12. We find out later that the New England Patriots were absolutely going to draft him at number 14. So he wouldn't have made it past 14 anyway. Brad Holmes, being slick, moves up, gets Jahmyr Gibbs at number 12. So now we have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, who's an absolute weapon, almost 1,000 yards from scrimmage, 500 yards catching passes out of the backfield. The guy runs routes like a receiver. He has 4.25 speed. Okay, so an upgrade over DeAndre Swift, an upgrade over Jamal Williams, these 2 running backs. And guess what? We still got Craig Reynolds in the fold. We also got an undrafted free agent who was the number 1 rusher in the Big Ten last year, and Mohamed Ibrahim. We brought in Benny Snell, NFL veteran from the Pittsburgh Steelers. This running back room is now loaded. What used to be a point of maybe a deficiency on this team is now a strong point and a loaded running back room for the Detroit Lions. We're in much better shape than we were in 2021.
Now that was pretty thorough. That was about as thorough as you're going to get. Really, the only thing that you missed in that, you're going to save a little bit for me. I guess the only thing I can really add to it is, Justin Jackson suddenly retired out of nowhere. I really liked Justin Jackson last year, but no, he's not going to be part of the 53-man roster. So now there is an open competition there. So running back, I agree with you. We definitely got an upgrade, but I want to move to where I think is crazy where we have came. And I'm going to move to this wide receiver position. And you ready for this? In 2021, our starting wide receivers were supposed to be Tyrell Williams and Rashad Perryman. After Perryman didn't make the team and Tyrell Williams got injured on like the second play of the game, our starting wide receivers were Quintez Cephas and Trinity Benson. Where do you go from that?
Yeah, and in fact, both of those guys ended up getting hurt and not playing at all, hardly at all anyway. And we had taxi drivers and dishwashers playing wide receiver. The one bright spot for that, though, was a 4th-round rookie from USC named Amon-Ra St. Brown, who burst onto the scene with literally no other receiving options. He catches almost 100 balls. He catches the game-winning touchdown in the Lions' first victory of that season after starting 0-8, and he established himself as a future star in this league. Of course, we know what he did last year, and he just backed it all up. But in 2021, we were introduced to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I believe will go down in history as one of the greatest Detroit Lions of all time. And the 2021 season will always, for me, be marked as Amon-Ra St. Brown's rookie season, that he single-handedly made the season worth watching. I mean, that was the most exciting 3-win team I'd ever seen. They were in a lot of games. They weren't getting smoked a lot, right? Dan Campbell's still learning his way, making some coaching moves, but it was Amon-Ra St. Brown that was the number one bright spot of that team. And going into 2022, he just carried that momentum with him. Who else did we have besides all those injured guys and Amon-Ra? Yep. Who else did we have?
Well, Khalif Raymond, but Khalif Raymond was acquired that year, but he was pretty much the punt returner. But yeah, I guess by the middle of the season, it was Khalif Raymond and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Was it Josh Reynolds also? They brought Josh Reynolds in.
They brought Josh Reynolds in right before or maybe right after they got that tie. They claimed him off the waiver wire in the middle of the season. And that's where they got Josh Reynolds. That earned him an extension. And then they selected Jamison Williams in the first round, which you might call Brad Holmes' one black eye is having Jamison Williams, but the jury's still out on this guy. But no, I would say if there's any weakness on this Lions roster going into 2023, it would be, high quality talent at the wide receiver position going into the season.
We did bring in DJ Chark in 2022 for a 1-year deal. He did get hurt, miss a few games, but he played great down the stretch. And he gave the Lions a deep threat, somebody to play outside the numbers, an X receiver. And that is something that we haven't replaced yet. They draft Antoine Green in the 7th round of the last draft because he fits all of that criteria. It's still a 7th-round draft pick. We're not putting a whole lot of stock into it, but he has looked good in preseason as well. Another big-time wide receiver in this room would really help. And DeAndre Hopkins is somebody I really wanted the Lions to get. Of course, we know that he signed with Tennessee, but I think we're going to be fine. We do have a couple of guys, too, undrafted free agents. One guy showing out at the preseason game, Chase Cota. And we've also got Dylan Drummond, who went to Eastern Michigan. These guys are both tall receivers, fast receivers. They might make the team. And, as you were talking, Russ, it kind of dawned on me. The same receivers we had in 2021 are who we have now. Josh Reynolds, Amon-Ra, and Khalif. That's what we have now. So, unless one of these guys, other guys that we talk about came in and unless one of them comes in and makes a splash, or if JMO can pick it up in week 7 and make a splash, this is definitely a position of need when you break it down the way you and I are right now. So definitely out there, if you're a Lions fan, something to watch maybe is that wide receiver room and see if there are any additions before the start of the season.
That is true right there. If you're being unhomerish and you're really looking at this with a critical eye, I can't really argue with that. Right. I mean, it is an upgrade over, Trinity Benson and Quintez Cephas, but the way that wide receiver room shook out at the end of the season is pretty much what it is, minus Jamison Williams. So if we're moving on now into the tight end room where, you had TJ Hawkinson and Darren Fells were your starting tight ends. And as you know, last year we had traded TJ Hawkinson for a 2nd and 3rd round pick. And we were able to pick up undrafted free agents, Brock Wright, Shane Zylstra, and then they drafted a guy named James Mitchell, who's contributed on a small level on the team and completely revamped that room. And the tight end production with the 3 unnamed guys ended up being the most tight end production out of a room in NFL history during that stretch. Now, let's talk about this tight end room.
Well, right. And going back into the Wayback Machine in 2021, who were our tight ends? TJ Hawkinson and who? And Norman
Darren
Fell.
Fells.
Wasn't Norman Fell Mr. Roper on Three's Company? Oh, Darren.
We've had enough of that shit.
Darren Fells. I'm sorry. Darren. Who?
Yeah.
I mean, what? I remember in 2021, we were saying, damn, Dan Campbell looks like he could suit up and go play tight end for us right now.
We're going to bite a kneecap off.
Tight end's a very important position to Dan Campbell since he played that position himself. Tight end's also a very important position in NFL offenses this year. If you don't have a good tight end, you're just going to be a middle of the pack team. All the best teams have a great tight end. So this was definitely a position they needed to address. And when we say address, we didn't expect them to trade TJ Hawkinson in the middle of the year to a division opponent, right?
Right.
That was in 2022. In 2021, we did not get a lot of production. I think we were dead last in the league in production from the tight ends because TJ Hawkinson just couldn't stay healthy. When he's out there, he's a top 10 tight end in receiving, but he falls down a lot. He drops passes. He's not a great blocker. These are the knocks on him. And these were things that were just too much for Brad Holmes to and Dan Campbell to overcome. And they, of course, traded out with him. They did get James Mitchell, in 4th round pick from Virginia Tech. He loves to block. He especially loves to block in space out in the open field, which fits right into what the Lions' offensive philosophy is and how they want
We're going to bite a kneecap off.
And you take a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown and you put a guy like James Mitchell out there blocking in space for him, it could be very dangerous. So it's a nice pairing. And like you alluded to, once they got rid of Hawkinson, they started to game plan for these no-name tight ends. Shane Zylstra, Brock Wright, James Mitchell. And there's one more in there I'm forgetting. Who's that? There was a 4th.
Well, there's a 4th that was drafted at 34th overall this year. And the extra pick that was got from trading down from 6 to 12, they were able to land pick 34, and they picked Iowa tight end Sam Laporta. And he is going to be a big cog into the system. And now that Shane Zylstra unfortunately had a season-ending injury, it looks like the room is pretty much what the room is, where you got Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, and James Mitchell will probably be the tight end depth. And I'm liking that room. Honestly, that's a definite upgrade when you look at all 3 of them put together.
Right. You look at Laporta, a great receiving tight end, Brock Wright, a great blocking tight end, and James Mitchell, a hybrid of both of those things, a good pass catcher and a good blocker. So I agree. This tight end room is well-rounded.
Moving on right here. And this is right here where I think the offensive line is one of the reasons that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, took this job, because they knew they already had a good base of offensive linemen that isn't changed at all right here. You got Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Haloli Lodi Pudi Vaitai, Penei Sewell, that was drafted in that first draft pool. And Penei Sewell looks like advertised like he's going to be a perennial all-pro. I think he's going to be an all-pro tackle this year from the right side. This is one of the most solid offensive lines in the league, and Brad Holmes has locked up the band for the next few years, which I think is also smart. Your thoughts on the offensive line?
Can we jump in the Wayback Machine? And I know that we had Evan Brown, but he wasn't a starter. We had some injuries in that year along the offensive line. I know Frank Ragnow was hurt. Vaitai got hurt and missed all of 2022. But in 2021, what were we looking at for offensive line?
Matt Nelson, like you said, everywhere. Evan Brown, Logan Stenberg. And really the depth is the only thing that's really changed when it came down to it. And we may actually get to see what this full offensive line is put together. They brought in Graham Glasgow to be the depth. I believe he's an upgrade over everywhere Evan Brown as a depth position, because he plays center, he plays both guard positions. He's going to be able to back those up. And I love where this offensive line is in 2023, even in comparison to, it's a healthy version of what we wanted from 2021.
We never did get to see all 5 offensive linemen together. Hopefully we will get to see that this year. Right now, they're all healthy enough. If the regular season started tomorrow, we would see that starting lineup of Taylor Decker, Frank Ragnow, Penei Sewell, Jonah Jackson, Vitae. I'll just say hell of a booty Vitae.
Hell of a booty,
Hell of a booty
Vitae.
Vitae.
We're going to bite a kneecap off.
If we can see all 5 of those guys line up in week 1, I will be ecstatic because, like you said, one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And by the way, one of the most expensive offensive lines in the NFL. Most of our salary cap outside of the quarterback position is going to that offensive line. And you're going to need to pay some of these guys like Amon-Ra next year too. So you've got to keep that in mind that, yeah, it's a good offensive line, but you're paying for it as well. So They drafted a guy this year, Colby Sorsdahl from William and Mary, who was one of the leading offensive linemen. You're like, who? Yeah, Colby Sorsdahl. This guy's looking like a beast, a gem.
It looks fine.
Yeah. So if we do lose a piece along that, we're already reloading for the future on the bench depth. So offensive line, defensive line, that's where championships are won, building through the trenches, something previous Lions teams have never done. And now this regime doing it the right way. Like you said, when they got here, they knew they had a good foundation, right, at the offensive line. They could start focusing on other areas of the team because they knew that portion was
right.
set. And that's the strength of our team then in 2021, and it's the strength of our team now, maybe even more so with Ragnow having some time to heal from these injuries, Vitae healing from his injuries, Penei Sewell not a rookie anymore.
Right.
Okay. Taylor Decker, even more seasoned and solid as he's always been.
He's having a hell of a camp.
There's going to be a great season for this offensive line if they can stay healthy.
I love it. And there's really not as much to report on the offensive line. I love the pick of Sorsdahl. I'll double down on that. And they did extend Jonah Jackson by, I don't know if it's a year or 2 years, but they did put an extension on him. So they want to keep this band together. Really, if you're going to invest a lot of money into anything, I would say protecting the quarterback should be the most important thing to do there.
And I'm on record as saying that I believe in the first round next year, regardless of where we pick, hopefully we'll be picking 32 next year in the draft. But no matter where we pick, I think the Lions will draft an offensive lineman next year, even if this defense falters, just to stay in the plan. And if you look at the fluidity of the salary cap that Brad Holmes is building, as one expires, it's time to renew another. And he's keeping this fluid salary cap going. I think that offensive line in the first round is where the Lions will go next year, even if they finish with the number 1 offensive line in the league.
I do know that there are a lot of deeper guys that we can talk about, but I think in this episode, we're going to end up just more focusing on the guys that people know before we get really, really deep on all these as we're going forward. And I'm realizing that we're 43 minutes into this podcast and we haven't even started with the defense, which I am so excited about because this is where you're going to see most of the turnaround. This defense was atrocious in 2021, where let's start with these defensive tackles, where your defensive tackles were Michael Brockers, Deshaun Hand, Nick Williams, John Pennicini, Kevin Strong.
Wow.
And then we drafted Aleem McNeil and then Levi Onwuzurike in the second round. So they drafted a couple defensive tackles. Give me your take on this defensive line, because they didn't select a defensive lineman very high in this draft.
Right. Well, third round with Broderick Martin, that's relatively high. But I think it's the year in between that we need to look at. Coming off that 2021 season, it was obvious with those names that you just read off. They needed defensive help, right? So defensive line help. So with the second overall pick, they take the beast from Michigan, Aiden Hutchinson, who will be a cornerstone of this team for the next 10 years at least. So Aleem McNeil and Onwuzurike, of course, with a back injury, didn't play. We haven't seen this guy start a game yet, right? I mean, he hasn't started, to my knowledge, a single game since he's been drafted.
So that was looked at. So let's talk about Levi Onwuzurike right here, because he was a guy that they drafted in the second round. They expected him. He was one of the best defense. They said he had a first round grade. It's been gone. We wrote this guy off, and here this guy is practicing with the second team, has worked his way up the depth chart ahead of some of these offseason acquisitions. Levi owns Enrique, main event Mike.
Yeah, I'm excited just to see him. A second round talent. When you draft him that high coming out of Washington, they added a super stout defense that year, and he was the leader of that defense. A lot of high expectations. We knew he was injured when we drafted him in college. I just don't think we knew the severity of the injury. And with Aleem McNeil, and teams were gashing us up the middle in 2021. It got a little better last year, even though our defense was historically bad through the first 8 weeks. Those guys are starting to round into form. We saw Aleem McNeil have a good game in Chicago. And where was the other one? I think it was in Carolina.
It was New York. And it was when they switched him. When they switched him, because he was so big, at what, 330, 340 pounds. And he was so nimble that they just assumed that he was a nose tackle. You want to put him right in the middle. When they moved him over to the 3 technique, and he was able to get 11 pressures. I think he had a sack or 2 in that New York Giants game. He was huge in them winning that game. So they're going to keep him where he was, where he shaved off a whole bunch of weight, like 25 pounds in the offseason, doing yoga and eating better and working on his flexibility. So I'm very excited to see what Aleem McNeil can do in 2023.
Well, I know that I jumped the gun a little bit and was talking about defensive ends.
Let's go.
But it's hard not to talk about the defensive ends when we're talking about interior defensive linemen, because the Lions also draft a guy like Josh Paschal, who can play on the edge, and he can also move inside and play interior D-line. You've got Isaiah Buggs, like you said, who's gigantic. This man is huge. Aleem McNeil, they're in way better shape up the middle than they were in 2021. And I think the second half of last year is indicative of those changes and how much stronger they are up the middle on this defensive line. So we got McNeil on Enrique. We got Paschal, who plays inside sometimes. Isaiah Buggs. Are we missing anyone on the interior D?
I mean, you could say Kaminsky. Kaminsky could go in or out. But let's go ahead and just say, in 2021, and our edge defenders were Trey Flowers, Austin Bryant. Now here's three names: Romeo Okwara, Julian Okwara, and Charles Harris. Now, what I really want to be glaringly obvious right here is here's 3 guys that were supposed to be starters. They brought them to be starters in 2021, and these same guys are going to be at the bottom of this depth chart because of the things that you were just saying.
Yeah, Charles Harris in 2021 had 7 sacks for the Detroit Lions. They signed him to another 2-year deal after that. So definitely he's going to make some noise this year too. He might even end up winning the starting job the way he's been playing in preseason from what they're saying. So of course, Aiden Hutchinson's a given over on one edge. You've got the Okwara brothers. I mean, that's some real depth at edge rusher, right?
And
Josh Paschal,
John Kaminsky,
the commish.
Yeah, the commish, they re-signed him. They gave him a 2-year, I think over $4 million a year. So they believe in John Kaminsky to provide the depth on this and to be a solid guy coming in reserve. I mean, what a solid room. This
Russ, we just mentioned 9 names. 9. And you look at that in that list you gave
crazy.
2021, there's 4 guys that are even noteworthy. We have 9 guys that will be rotating in and out, and that doesn't even include Covington. That doesn't even include some of these other guys who might just make the team.
And one thing that we didn't even mention during this, and I can't even believe it didn't even come out, James Houston was drafted in the 6th round and had 8 sacks in his rookie year. I'm going to mention this one last thing before we move on to the linebackers. The defensive line, from a rookie perspective, this rookie class that came out last year with Aiden Hutchinson and James Houston and Malcolm Rodriguez had more sacks than any draft class in the history of the NFL. If you want to talk about the future being bright, this Brad Holmes, he don't miss.
Can you believe we didn't even mention James Houston? We're talking about 9 guys. Sorry, make that 10 guys.
10 guys.
Okay, 10 guys along the defensive line that are all going to make this team and going to have impactful minutes for Very few teams around the league can boast a rotation of 10 guys. In fact, the Buffalo Bills boast all the time about 8 guys. 8 guys. They got 8 guys rotating on the defensive line. You know what? Lions are going to have even more than that. So look out. This unit, this defensive unit as a whole, I believe is going to take the biggest jump of any unit on any team in the league.
So moving on to linebackers, and aside from Jamie Collins was a bad contract that we had to get rid of in 2021. They drafted Derek Barnes in 2021 in the 4th round, and he's starting to blossom. It looks like he may even win that linebacker job. They draft Jack Campbell at pick 18, and you and I love that pick. I screamed like a child when they picked him at 18. He was my favorite defensive player in the draft. And then they re-signed Alex Anzalone, who was the captain last year, had a career year. And then Malcolm Rodriguez, another 6th-round gem. They worked all the way up the depth chart and started like 15 or 16 games last year, contributed all year. I mean, what a revamped room. No more kudos. How much kudos can we possibly give to Brad Holmes?
Right. Mr. Peabody, can we jump into the Wayback Machine again?
Let's go back.
Who was our starting linebackers in 2021?
All right. And this is actually pretty good. So, yeah, Jamie Collins, Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, and Anthony Pittman.
We still have all of those guys except for one. Except for Jamie Collins, we still have all those guys. And like you said before, that is now the floor, right? That's the depth. What was the starters in 2021 is now the reserves and the depth. We're going to be looking at Jack Campbell, Anzalone, starting probably Derek Barnes, maybe as the 3rd linebacker. Then you got guys like Rodrigo, who's an absolute stud, who started last year coming off the bench. Reeves-Maybin, Pittman, these guys are great, solid linebackers. That would also, they'd be backups on anybody's team. They would make any team in the league, I believe, because they're at least that good. So this is going to be a strength of the team, the linebacker core.
Well, I'm going to jump in on the Jack Campbell thing. It's like, yeah, you do have these solid guys, and Barnes, Rodriguez, and Anzalone. Jack Campbell has came in and done his thing. Like, these rookies are coming in and demanding, with their play, by their hard work, that they're getting notice. And Jack Campbell in that first preseason game had the highest grade of any player that was drafted in his first 20. It was only like 25 snaps, but this kid looks like the future. Like, this kid could be special because he's so long and he's so fast. And he's so smart and he's so damn good. And all these other guys that were solid last year, like you said, you drop him at the top of the depth chart and everybody just slides down one. And there's that depth. You can't go. I mean, depth is what wins championships. And it's another position that I believe that the Detroit Lions have depth in.
Yeah, I mean, linebackers coach Kelvin Shepard has to be over the moon right now with the way his room is shaken out compared to 2021. Alex Anzalone he's a good, solid linebacker. He led the team in tackles last year. But Jack Campbell, like you said, 6'5". He was an academic All-American. He was also an All-American linebacker at Iowa. Plays the pass really well. He's got great instincts. He comes downhill to make plays in the run game. He's an absolute stud. You said it on draft day. Let's get the gold jacket ready for this guy because that's what he's going to be.
Ball skills.
If he could be even close to that in any capacity, like Chris Spielman was a fixture at the linebacker position for the Lions for years and years to come, we're going to be in great shape. Love the pick. He was in the top 9 prospects that Brad Holmes had targeted on his draft board, and he was able to get him at 18, the number 1 linebacker in the draft. And we got him at 18. It's great. We expect that he'll have the green dot on his helmet within the next few weeks, calling the plays. And he's a rookie, my friend. A nice, strong linebacker room. The only question I have is if the Lions play a 4-2-5, right? If they play a 4-2-5 or 5-2-4, if they only go with 2 linebackers, I think that having those depth guys are going to get kind of left back a bit because Derek Barnes, he doesn't play defensive line. We got guys like Charles Harris and James Houston who actually can play jack linebacker. So if we do a hybrid 3-4 or something like that, we've got the depth pieces to do those kinds of things and make exotic. This league's all about matchups.
Yep.
And if you can scheme your defense to expose a matchup that you like, that gives you a leg up. And how do you do that? You do that with versatile players that can play multiple positions and handle multiple assignments. And the Lions are building a defense just like that. Like I said, it's going to be a great day. Hey, to all the viewers out there and all the listeners out there, we want to remind you, head on over to our YouTube. It's at Main Event 365 on YouTube, and subscribe to our channel because that's the juice that helps keep us flowing. Don't forget, every weekday morning at 11 a.m., it's NFC North Football Talk with Russell Wayne. And then on Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, it is NFC North Open Mic Trash Talk Edition.
I love it, man. This thing has grown so much, and I want to thank all of the listeners, the viewers, everybody that's out there, because I mean, it really, talking heads football during the middle of summer. We did it for practice. We didn't think anybody practice. We did it just because we were just going to have some fun. We didn't know that we were going to have 1,000 people watching us every day. So we appreciate all the listeners that are out there doing that thing. And before I want to end with a bang on here. So I'm going to go straight to something that doesn't change. In 2021, our punter was Jack Fox and our long snapper was Scott Daly. And I think that's where we're at. They're staying good. We got the best punter in the league. It can't be undersold.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the secondary. We're going to jump in the Wayback Machine and give me those no-name guys that were in the secondary in 2021, which has been the soft spot on this defense for the last 5 years, maybe last 50 years.
I love it. He doesn't want to give no love to the punters. He's like, let's get into the meat and potatoes. This is the funnest for me to look at. And I want to do them all at the same time right here. That we're going to go all of secondary, where our secondary cornerbacks was Jeff Okudah, Amani Oruwariye, AJ Parker, Bobby Price, Ifeatu Melifonwu, and Jerry Jacobs. Now, Jerry Jacobs is probably going to be the only survivor among these. I don't think Ifeatu is going to make it.
You don't think if he makes the team?
I don't know. I mean, when you look at it, let's go, and here's our safeties. Tracy Walker, Will Harris, Dean Marlowe, and CJ Moore. That's where we came from. And we fast forward, we're coming back from the Wayback Machine. They draft Kirby Joseph in the third round. In the third round. That is correct. And then they trade Jeff Okudah to the Atlanta Falcons for a 5th round pick. Mm-hmm. They get rid of Amani Oruwariye. They bring in Cameron Sutton. They bring in Emmanuel Mosley. They bring in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They draft Brian Branch, and probably one of your favorite draft day steals of all time.
All time.
Completely revamp this room. How excited are you about this Detroit Lions?
Extremely excited. And the one name that was on that list in 2021, CJ Moore, was suspended for a year for a gambling infraction, which hurts us in the special teams game. He wasn't much of a player in the safety room, as he was a specialist on special teams. So we're going to miss his production there on the special teams. But the other guys, are you kidding me? Okudah was a bust. He couldn't stay healthy. We wasted a 3rd overall pick on the guy. We ended up getting peanuts back for him for Atlanta, right. But at least it makes room. This room has been a deficiency on this team for years. Last year, it was terrible. Oruwariye especially was terrible. Mike Hughes was terrible. Deshaun Elliott did a decent job at safety. I liked Deshaun Elliott.
He was okay.
But he ended up getting a bigger contract somewhere else than what we could give him, which is fine because Tracy Walker was out after the 3rd game of the year last year. He's coming back healthy. You've got Kirby Joseph, who's turning into one of the best young safeties in the NFL. CJ Gardner-Johnson, who's already one of the best safeties in the NFL. And then you got a guy like Brian Branch who can play multiple positions. Do you see a pattern here? Do you see where the Lions are going here? You've got these linebackers and D linemen that play multiple positions. You've also got safeties and DBs that play multiple positions. Ify Melifonwu was a cornerback who was drafted to play corner. We have since moved him into safety, now back to corner. He can play both positions in a pinch. With so many injuries happening in the defensive secondary on every team in the league, you can never have enough DBs. And the more you get them playing multiple positions, the more options it gives you and flexibility it gives you when injuries do occur. This is how you build a championship team. When somebody goes down, the next man up mentality, and that confidence, like we said before, breeds across the whole team. When the whole team looks around and goes, oh, if he gets hurt, we're screwed. No, he gets hurt. You know what? This guy's already about to take his job because I mean, that's how James Houston even made it on the team.
Right.
The offensive line coming to the coaches and going, man, we can't block this guy.
Right.
Why is he on the practice squad? And sure enough, he comes in and sets a rookie record. And of course, we have coaches that listen to the players. Amazing. So I'm sorry I get so excited when we talk about
the secondary gets you fired up.
It does, because this was the worst part of our team. It was the low point of our team. It is now a strength of the team. In 1 year's time,
Correct.
Brad Holmes has revamped the entire back seven, kept the good ones, got rid of the bad ones, and brought in upgrades across the board. I know you love Brian Branch. The kid was the best safety in the country. He's been playing a lot of nickel in practice in preseason and shining. That hit on Cole Beasley at nickel corner was phenomenal. So we're really excited. I know you think he's going to make the starting lineup.
He's undeniable. That's what he's doing out there. Brian Branch, when they selected him, and the reason they fleeced the Green Bay Packers in this, because you're right. They wanted to get a safety. They thought they'd go back. We had Tracy Walker, Kirby Joseph, and Chauncey Gardner. There was no way they were thinking that we were going to go safety right there. We end up picking the guy, and we don't really need him to start. But this dude in all the preseason and all the practice, he's playing and outplaying. They're going to have to find a spot on there because you got to put your best guys that are out there. And he's looking like one of the best guys on the field, on any field, whether you're talking rookie or, I mean, I would love to have him out there with Chauncey Gardner and Kirby Joseph and just lock down the middle of that back end. And let's not even worry about it.
You look at a guy like Jerry Jacobs, who made the team, and the coaches love him. He works hard. His teammates love him. He's going to be the fourth corner on this team. Now, Cameron Sutton comes over. He'll be our CB1. Maybe not a top 5 corner in this league, but if you look at his PFF grades, they're top 10.
Yeah, he's solid.
He's a very sticky cover corner. He's going to be our CB1. Emmanuel Mosley, coming over from the 49ers, was due a $16 million payday. He's notorious for shutting down guys like DK Metcalf, and he has really flashed ability to be a shutdown corner. He's going to come back from injury. There's going to be a little bit of a time where he's going to have to get acclimated to the defense and all that. But when he does, we're going to have a solid 1-2 corner punch with Emmanuel Mosley and Cameron Sutton. And that doesn't include any of the guys we just mentioned. All those other guys we just mentioned and we're praising up and down, they're not even our starting CBs. So this unit went from being a weakness to a strength. And that is a pattern that we've seen with Brad Holmes over these last 3 years. He takes a position of weakness or an area of weakness, and he dedicates resources to it to build it up to a strength. Not just bring it up to par, but to make it a strength. Right. We've seen him do it with defensive line. We've seen him now do it with quarterback, and we've seen him do it in this offseason with the secondary. Plugging holes, but not just plugging holes to keep the ship afloat, but plugging those holes to upgrade the entire team.
I can't agree more. The 32nd ranked defensive backfield, and you can't deny that. Completely overhaul that room, and your front seven wasn't bad. I mean, your front seven wasn't that bad. They were making sacks. I think they were like 19th in the league in sacks and getting pressure to the quarterback somewhere in there. So that's not bad. You just need your secondary to be good. They overhauled the secondary. I think overall, by far the best upgrades in the NFC North. I think it's their division to lose. right here. I don't think any of the other teams did nearly enough to stay par with the Detroit Lions. I think this is a double-digit win season with division winning and getting maybe even a home playoff game, Mike.
Yeah, I think so for sure. And before we sign off, Russ, I want to say thanks for doing this. This was a great way to kick off our new podcast seasons by taking a look back, right? And before we take that big look ahead, let's take a quick look back and let's see where we came from, because this is going to be a special season. I think everyone can feel it. You and I know it. We know it's going to be a special season.
Use your line. I want to hear your line. The sun shining relevant.
How I love to tell Green Bay Packer fans how it is. The sun is rising on 10 years of relevance for the Detroit Lions. As I look behind me, I see the sun setting on 10 years of obscurity for the Green Bay Packers. So, but it was great to start it out this way, Russ. Every Thursday, we're going to be back recording our podcast, and it feels good to talk about Detroit Lions. It feels good to be in a positive light and get out of that trash talk space that's so full of negativity, because, you always uplift me. This team uplifts me, and I'm super excited to get this season going. Every Thursday, we're going to record this podcast, and we invite everyone to please download it wherever you get your podcasts and listen to it at your leisure. By this time next week, we'll have preseason game number 2 in the books against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll have all kinds of analysis on that game, and we'll look ahead to the final preseason game as we barrel towards the start of the NFL season on Thursday, September 7th, with the Detroit Lions against the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs.
Next week, we are going to do the review the Jaguars, and we're going to preview we actually play Carolina.
Odd? You never see teams play a preseason team that they have scheduled in the regular season. So that is odd to me.
It is, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to call it the review preview, and we'll hit that up. And some of these will be live. We're not going to do all of them pre-recorded. Sometimes I got gigs like this gig right here where I'm going to be out there tonight. So if you're looking at this right now, you're knowing that I am on stage right now at this place. I am not actually talking to you. This is pre-recorded me telling you that the real me is at this spot, the Corner Bar in Fenton. So if you're in the Fenton, Michigan area, come in and see me if you're there before 10 o'clock.
Can you see the real me?
The real me.
Right on. So let's do the sign off. What do you think?
Let's do the sign off.
All right. For the Maestro Russell Wayne, I'm your host, Main Event Mike, saying thank you so much for joining us for the Main Event 365. We'll see you next time. God bless each and every one of you. Peace out.
That's where the music that comes in, it goes.
Name.